Her daughter-in-law locked her in the laundry room and told her to stay there if you want to feel useful. Mari Brooks, retired paralegal and homeowner, didn't raise her voice. Tasha thought she was humiliating an old woman. Instead, she activated a file cabinet. By Friday, utilities were shut off, the locks were changed, and legal eviction notices papered the front door. Mari hadn't lost her home, she'd simply taken it back. And when the family tried to fight her in court, the deed in her name did all the talking. Before we begin, may I ask where in this big, beautiful world are you listening from? It's always a quiet honor to know who's sharing this. Drop it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. The folded towels were still warm when Mari carried them to the front unit, balanced neatly against her hip. Cotton, lemon-scented from the dryer sheet she always tucked into the final load. She knocked once out of habit, then let herself in her name was still on the deed after all. Tasha stood in the living room, arms crossed, face unreadable. She didn't offer a smile. She didn't even say hello, just nodded her chin toward the hallway. Just leave them in the laundry room. Mari didn't argue, didn't ask if Logan needed anything, or if Brian was home. She walked down the familiar hall, passing walls she painted herself back in, '03 now, cluttered with digital prints of motivational quotes Tasha must have ordered in bulk. She set the towels on top of the washer, folded, clean, done, then turned around to leave. The soft click behind her was sharp in the silence, too sharp for an air current or loose hinge. Mari grabbed the knob, turned it, locked. "Tasha?" she called softly. From the other side of the door, Tasha's voice slid through, smooth and venom-laced. "Stay in there if you want to feel useful." Mari stood frozen, palm still on the knob. No yelling, no banging, no question. Just a pause, so full it pressed against her chest like a seatbelt in a crash. She didn't knock again. Instead, she turned, eased herself onto the washing machine, and folded her hands in her lap. The room was tight. More utility than comfort detergent scents thick in the air, a low hum from the mini water heater in the corner. Her legs dangled off the edge. She stared at the floor tile until her eyes blurred. Time passed in hums and silence. Somewhere past midnight, the porch light outside clicked off. At 3:04 a.m., a thump from the hallway, probably Brian, stumbling drunk again, carpet catching under his heels. The door never reopened. She didn't cry. Didn't sigh. She just waited. When dawn cracked through the frosted basement window, Mari eased off the washer, knees stiff. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the back exit key, the emergency one, tucked behind a fake detergent bottle. Still there. Still hers. She let herself out into the early morning air, the dew clinging to the grass. Birds just beginning their calls. Her breath fogged in front of her as she stepped carefully along the edge of the property, cane-tapping the stone path she laid with Brian when he was 12. She didn't glance back at the front unit. Inside her side of the duplex, everything smelled like cinnamon from the jar candle Logan gave her last Christmas. She moved straight to the hall closet, then down to the file cabinet in the second drawer. It opened with a soft metal groan. She pulled out the manila envelope, thick with years of paper and ink, notarized dates, and authority they thought she'd forgotten. She sat down at the small kitchen table, laid the pages out flat. Her name was there in bold, Marion Elaine Brooks. Not Brian, not Tasha, just hers. No shared ownership, no co-signers, no emotional equity. She stared at the signature for a long time, her own hand, from 17 years ago, signing into the future she never thought she'd have to defend. Outside, she heard the garbage truck rumble past, and then the soft slam of a front door. The house stirred. She didn't. Her phone buzzed once on the table. A group text from Tasha. "Laundry room could use a mop. Not that anyone cares." Mari closed the envelope, clicked off the light. The coffee was still warm when Mari sat down at the kitchen table. A stack of old bank statements fanned out before her like playing cards in a game she never agreed to play. The numbers didn't lie. Neither did the names. Every line item, Duke Energy, Chattanooga, gas, homeowners insurance, even the garbage service had one consistent detail. M.E. Brooks. She ran her finger down the latest utility printout. Over $280 last month. The heat always cranked, never questioned. Tasha liked her baths scalding and long. Brian forgot to turn off lights like it was a personality trait, but none of them reached for a checkbook. None of them asked what it cost. And they never offered. Not once. Mari sipped her coffee, bitter and black. No sugar, just truth. She pulled up Facebook on her tablet. A new post. Blinked to the top of her feed, a picture of Tasha on the front steps of the duplex, arms crossed, smiling wide. Finally, building our future. Number, generational stability. Mari stared at the caption, eyes unmoving. She didn't comment. She didn't like it. She simply tapped Save Post and dragged the tablet aside like it burned her hand. A knock on her side door rattled the silence. Shirley's familiar voice cut through the screen. "Girl, open up. I brought pecan coffee and my nosy ears." Mari let her in without a word. Shirley was the kind of woman who didn't need permission. She already knew when something had shifted in the air. They sat in the same chairs they always did, the same way they had every other Wednesday for a decade. But today, Mari pushed the manila envelope across the table like it was evidence in a trial. Shirley pulled out the first page, scanned the bold name. "Still just you." Then her eyes met Mari's. "So what happened?" Mari exhaled slowly. "She locked me in the laundry room." Shirley's coffee mug stopped halfway to her lips. "Come again?" Tasha shut the door, clicked the lock, said, "Stay in there, if you want to feel useful." Mari's voice didn't shake. It sliced. Shirley blinked, set the cup down hard. "That's not a family. That's a squatter with your last name." Mari cracked a smile. Not out of humor, out of recognition, out of relief that someone saw it plain. Shirley pulled out her phone. "Call Tamika. She helped my cousin boot a tenant who tried to marry the landlord's daughter to claim squatters' rights. Girl's a hammer and heels." That afternoon, Mari spoke to Tamika Nix for the first time. Clear voice. Calm questions. No pity. "Miss Brooks, you've got clear ownership, consistent payment records, and no formal lease with them. You have every right to reset this household." Reset. Mari liked that word. It wasn't revenge. It was control. She started with the easiest thread to cut the Wi-Fi. It was still under her name, on her credit card. A few taps, a hold with Comcast, and 15 minutes later, the modem went cold. She sat back and waited. It didn't take long. At 7:43 p.m., her door shuddered from 3 heavy knocks. "Mari!" Tasha's voice cracked across the yard, angry and entitled. "The internet's down! Fix it!" Mari didn't answer. She reached across the table instead and unplugged the router cord for good measure. On the hallway shelf, her deed sat under a paperweight, quiet but immovable. The heater rattled once and gave a final sigh before it went silent. Mari stood by the thermostat, hand still on the dial, watching the numbers blink out. Outside, a breeze tugged at the blinds, and she could already feel the chill crawling in. But her own side of the duplex stayed layered fleece socks, a thermal robe, and a wool blanket folded neatly on her reading chair. She'd lived through colder nights with less. Let them feel what unpaid heat felt like. She walked to her desk, pulled up the utility dashboard, and clicked the cancel button on both the gas and electric auto pays. Confirmed. Effective immediately. No notice sent. No guilt either. 10 minutes later, her phone buzzed. "Brian, we're freezing. What's going on?" Mari typed without hesitation. "Mari, feel free to set up your own account. The companies are listed in the welcome packet I gave you 3 years ago." She could almost hear his frustration huff through the screen. She put the phone face down. Tamika called just after lunch, her voice as smooth and sharp as a scalpel. "Got a minute?" "Plenty," Mari said, sliding into her chair. "I drafted a formal rent demand letter. 30 days notice with a breakdown of costs. If they want to claim residency, they can pay like residents." Mari inhaled, slow and steady. "Send it." "Already did. Certified mail and email." Tamika paused, voice low. "You okay, Miss Brooks?" Mari looked out the window toward the front unit. No movement, just blinds drawn tight and silence pressed behind them like foam insulation. I'm done being the free ride. That evening, Shirley came over with a plastic tub of soup and a look like she was itching for a fight. They still think you're bluffing? Mari nodded. Brian called about the cold. Shirley grunted. They want to play grown? Let them pay grown bills. They ate soup quietly, the way longtime friends do without needing to say everything. Shirley didn't ask for more details. She knew the lines had been crossed a long time ago. The next morning, Mari checked her mailbox. Alongside circulars and junk, there was a letter printed on pale pink paper, Tasha's name at the top, in faux formal font. A lease agreement. Mari scanned the contents, mouth curling into something between disbelief and exhaustion. Tasha had drafted her own rental contract, claiming tenancy rights, set her own rent at $0, and even wrote in utility reimbursement optional at owner discretion. Mari slid it across her desk during her next call with Tamika. Tamika let out a short laugh. That's not a lease. That's fan fiction. Should I respond? Mari asked. No need. Let it sit next to the real one. That evening, Mari took her tea out to the back porch. It was colder now, not quite freezing, but the kind of damp Tennessee chill that settled into your joints. She wrapped her fingers tighter around the warm mug. A rustle from the side steps caught her attention. Logan. He stood there in a hoodie, too thin for the weather, hands jammed into his pockets, eyes unsure but focused. You all right? Mari asked gently. He looked down, then back up. Can I come inside for a bit? The hum of the space heater filled the silence as Mari laid 2 slices of bread on a chipped ceramic plate. She didn't ask if Logan liked turkey or mustard. She just made the sandwich the way she always had when he was younger and would sneak back to her side after one of his parents' arguments. Back then, he didn't talk much. Now, he seemed to say even less. He sat at the edge of the couch, hands in his lap, shoulders pulled in like he was trying to disappear into his hoodie. When she placed the plate in front of him, he looked up with tired eyes. Thanks, he mumbled. Mari sat beside him with her tea, wrapping both hands around the mug. The room felt warmer with company, but the air between them was still heavy-loaded with things that had gone unsaid for too long. Halfway through his sandwich, Logan finally broke the quiet. She talks to you like you're the maid. The words landed like bricks. Heavy. Final. Spoken with a teenager's bluntness, stripped of euphemism or excuse. Mari didn't blink. That's about to change. Logan nodded slowly, chewing. Good. The fire didn't crackle. The heater didn't sputter. But something in the room shifted like the house itself had exhaled. He finished the sandwich, wiped his hands on his jeans, and glanced around. You got a printer? He asked. Mari raised an eyebrow. I do. Want to scan anything? Or, I don't know, digitize stuff? She tilted her head, amused. You know how to do that? I help the AV club. I'm not just some sad kid playing Xbox all day. A small grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. Well then, Mari said, standing. Let's make use of your skills. They spent the next hour in her home office. Mari pulled out bank statements, old property tax receipts, paid insurance bills, and the original deed in a fireproof envelope. Logan worked the scanner like he'd been born beside one. Every document got a clean digital copy. Together, they created a folder on her desktop. House reset. She labeled each subfolder meticulously. Mortgage paid off, 2011. Utility bills, all in my name. No signed lease with tenants. Shared expenses, none. You want me to password protect the folder? Logan asked. Mari smiled. Please do. When they finished, she pulled out a stack of pre-filled legal forms Tamika had emailed the week prior declaration of ownership, affidavit of expenses, a formal notice of unauthorized cohabitation. Mari signed them with a steady hand, one by one. Then she took out a stamp pad and pressed her notary seal into each form. She'd kept the certification active out of habit. Tonight, it felt like armor. Logan watched quietly. You're really doing this. I should have done it months ago. You think they'll leave without a fight? Mari's eyes didn't waver. They're already fighting. They just didn't know I was training. The mood was calm but charged. Not with fear, but with clarity. Then came the knock. Mari opened the front door, expecting Shirley maybe, or a delivery. Instead, an envelope lay on her porch, no postage, just a folded printout sealed with a piece of floral tape. She peeled it open, eyes scanning the bold title. Motion for co-ownership filed by Tasha Brooks. And just below that, in laughably italicized print, claiming emotional contribution and homemaking equity toward shared ownership of property. Mari let out a single breath, half a laugh, half a sigh. The morning sun hadn't broken fully over the ridge when Tamika knocked softly on Mari's back door. Mari was already dressed, coffee in hand, calm but sharpened like a blade honed overnight. They sat side by side at the kitchen table, a thick manila folder between them. The weight of it wasn't just paper, it was years of proof. Every single receipt, tax filing, and notarized form is here, Tamika said, flipping open the cover. She can claim she brought love and furniture. The state still wants signatures and money trails. Mari nodded, gaze steady. Love doesn't pay property tax. Tamika tapped the final page, her tone turning firm. And this? This is the original deed. You never added anyone. There's no joint anything. No transfer. No lease. Just generosity abused. Mari's face didn't twitch, but her fingers curled lightly around the handle of her mug. Time to close the door she thought she owned. By noon, the rebuttal had been filed. Tamika personally submitted it downtown, walking it into the clerk's hands. Less than 4 hours later, a formal decision came down. Claim dismissed. No standing, no legal precedent, no case. Mari took a slow breath, then typed up a short, emotionless note in 16-point font. Unit A is now under review. For all correspondence, please use legal representation. M. Brooks, owner. She printed it on thick cardstock, slid it into a sheet protector, and taped it square in the center of the front unit's door. 5 minutes later, Tasha ripped it down, crumpled it, and threw it into the azalea bush. Mari watched from her window. Quiet. Stone still. At dusk, Brian walked around to her side and knocked. He looked smaller than usual, shoulders hunched, voice quieter than his mother's sharp memory remembered. "Mom," he started. "You're breaking us up." Mari didn't open the door all the way, just enough for her voice to be heard. "You watched me sleep in a laundry room, Brian," she said evenly, "and you locked the door behind me." He didn't speak, didn't blink, just stood there until the silence curled back toward him. Then another voice came from behind the gate. "You need help packing?" Brian turned. Logan stood by the side fence, backpack slung over one shoulder, his expression unreadable. He didn't say it cruelly, just plainly, like it was the next step in a list of chores. Brian opened his mouth but said nothing. He turned and walked away without another word. That night, Mari locked up early. Shirley brought over a lemon pie and said, without preamble, "Some trees need pruning before they rot the whole yard." They laughed about that for longer than they should have. The next morning, just as Mari was refilling her bird feeder, her phone buzzed. She checked the caller ID. Sheriff's Office, Hamilton County. She answered with steady breath. "Miss Brooks," the voice said. "Professional, but not unkind. Your request has been approved. The eviction is cleared to proceed. Prep begins in 72 hours. Mari closed her eyes, absorbing the weight of it, but not bending under it. "Thank you," she said, and meant it. The paper didn't flutter. Not this time. Mari laminated the 3-day notice herself, sealed the edges tight, and pressed 4 strips of industrial tape along its borders until it looked like a government warning. She centered it on the front door of Unit A right, where Tasha once posted chore assignments and passive-aggressive sticky notes with smiley faces drawn too sharp. This one didn't smile. "Notice to pay or quit. You have 3 days to remit payment in full or vacate the premises. This notice is issued pursuant to TN Code Section 66-28, -500-5 owner, M. Brooks." It gleamed like a mirror under the Tennessee sun, catching the reflection of Mari's own calm face behind it. She stepped back once, looked it over like it was an art piece, then walked down the porch steps without a glance behind her. 10 minutes later, the door swung open, hard enough to rattle the screen. Tasha tore the laminated notice off with both hands, nearly losing her balance as she yanked. "You think you're intimidating somebody?" she yelled into the air, though Mari was nowhere in sight. "You lost your mind." Mari didn't answer. She was inside, heating water for tea. By the time the kettle whistled, the door had closed. Mari walked back across the yard and taped a second copy. Up this one in plastic sheet protectors, with thumbtacks pushed clean through the wood. From inside the house, a cabinet slammed. Then another. She didn't blink. That afternoon, her phone rang. Shirley's name lit up the screen. "Mari," came Brian's voice instead, rushed and desperate. "Can we talk? Mom's got this all wrong." Shirley's voice cut through on speaker. "Wrong number," she said and hung up. Mari stared at the phone for a beat, then tapped call on a different number. "Chattanooga Lock and Key," a voice answered. "I'd like to schedule a rekey," she said. "1 unit, end of the week." "Name on title?" "Mari Brooks," she said clearly. "I own the whole house." They scheduled her for Saturday morning. That night, Logan appeared just after sunset, standing awkwardly by the back steps. Mari had just let the cat in when she saw him. His hands were jammed into his hoodie pocket. "If they get kicked out," he mumbled, not quite looking at her. "Where do I go?" Mari held the screen door open. "You'll never be locked in," she said quietly. "Or out. Not here." He stepped inside without another word. She made grilled cheese and tomato soup. He ate both without speaking, but halfway through the sandwich, he looked up and whispered, "Thank you." The next morning, Mari swept the front porch. Calmly. Slowly. A breeze tugged at the corners of the yard, sending dry leaves skating across the concrete. Tasha flung the door open. "You think this is a win?" she shrieked across the yard. "You think humiliating your own family makes you the hero?" Mari didn't look up. "We're gonna go public, you hear me?" Tasha's voice cracked now, rage bubbling into panic. "You think people won't talk?" Mari turned the broom in her hand once, gripping the worn wooden handle like it was something steadier than time itself. "Let them talk," she thought. "Let them hear it from me first." The letter wasn't long, but it was clear. Mari sat at her kitchen table, fingers steady, coffee cooling beside her. The scent of cinnamon from her toast lingered in the air, but she hadn't touched it. Instead, she wrote with the kind of quiet that follows a storm, not the calm before it, but the silence after something final. "To my church sisters, longtime neighbors and friends. You've known me as Miss Mari for years. You've seen me prune the rose bushes out front, donate Sunday casseroles, and rock babies in the nursery before my knees gave out. What you haven't seen is what happened behind the walls of my own home." The letter wasn't bitter. It was boundary setting. She laid it out plainly. How she'd opened her home to her son and his wife. How her name had stayed on the deed. How she paid every b'levin as the tone in the house shifted, even as her place in it shrank from matriarch to afterthought. She mentioned the laundry room, not in dramatic detail, just a line. "One night, I was asked to leave towels, and the door locked behind me. I spent the night there. That was my turning point." She didn't ask for pity. She didn't blame. She simply let the truth breathe. After printing 10 copies, she tucked them into blank envelopes and labeled each by hand. Dottie, Miss Jean, Pastor Roy's wife, the Halperns, Shirley. When Shirley arrived for their usual Thursday coffee, Mari slid her envelope across the table like it was a final puzzle piece. Shirley read it without blinking, lips pressed into a thin line. "I was wondering how long you'd let them ride the rails," she finally said, folding the letter in half with precision. "You wrote this like someone with no heat left to waste." "I'm done explaining my worth," Mari replied, voice low. Shirley nodded. "I'll get this where it needs to go." By Saturday afternoon, the neighborhood had read the letter. No gossip, no whispers, just a quiet wave from Mrs. Halpern as she passed by with her walker, and an extra peach cobbler left at Mari's door from the Jamesons 2 doors down. But online? The fire started from the front porch. Tasha posted a selfie from inside the unit, arms crossed, fake tears welling at the corners of her carefully done eyes. Imagine being thrown out by a vindictive old woman. After all we've done for her, number elder drama, number pray forals. But the comments didn't coddle. One woman replied, "Sounds like she protected her home. If that's vindictive, sign me up." Another, "My mom pays my light bill. I don't lock her in the laundry room." The tide was swift. Tasha disabled replies. Then comments. Then the post disappeared altogether. Mari didn't post a response. She didn't need to. Instead, she opened the front closet and removed the small key box she hadn't touched in years. That evening, she sat on her porch swing and watched the locksmith arrive. He nodded respectfully and got to work on her side of the house. The new keys clicked smoothly into place. When the man finished, he handed her 2 copies. Mari turned one over in her hand like a coin. "Feels lighter somehow," she murmured. "Fresh-cut metal always does," the locksmith said. Inside, Logan peered from the window, watching without asking. He'd been quieter since the notice went up, but he wasn't afraid, just waiting. Sunday morning, Mari stepped outside with a basket of scones for the church bake sale. Shirley met her at the sidewalk with a fresh flyer in her hand. Women's Circle Quarterly. Guest host, Miss Mari Brooks, speaking on boundaries, ownership, and voice. Mari raised an eyebrow. "They requested you," Shirley said, smiling. "Said they want to learn what quiet power sounds like." Mari chuckled. "It sounds like a woman who's done folding towels for people who don't say thank you." Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was Tamika. Mari answered with a calm hello. "They filed an emergency motion," Tamika said crisply. "They're trying to halt the eviction." Mari's smile didn't fade. "Let me guess. Emotional distress?" "Among other theatrics," Tamika said. "We go to court Monday." The courtroom smelled like lemon disinfectant and old paper. The air conditioning blew colder than necessary, sharp enough to sting the edges of Mari's cheeks, but she didn't shiver. She had on her slate gray cardigan, the one with the deep pockets and the tighter wrists. Inside one pocket, a pack of tissues. Inside the other, the deed. The doors creaked as they opened wide. Tasha entered first, hair blown out, heels clicking like she thought the floor was a runway. She wore a navy blue pantsuit that fit too tightly across the shoulders, and an expression rehearsed to look both betrayed and brave. Brian trailed behind her, face pale, tugging at the knot of his tie like it might strangle him on the spot. Mari waited until they were seated before stepping in. Tamika walked beside her in a muted navy skirt and blazer. Her heels didn't announce themselves. She carried a compact leather briefcase. Mari held a single manila folder under her arm. They took their seats quietly. No glances exchanged. The bailiff called the case. Brooks versus Brooks. The irony sat thick on the judge's face. He adjusted his glasses and looked toward Mari first. "Do you have documentation supporting your sole ownership of the property?" Mari didn't hesitate. "Would you prefer the original deed or the certified copy?" she asked, pulling both out with deliberate calm. Tamika placed them on the table. "And we've included tax receipts, utility statements, and notarized affidavits of payment history going back 10 years. The judge flipped through the folder. The paper rustled crisply, like dry leaves turning in autumn. Tasha stood abruptly. "She's manipulating everything," she blurted. "She offered us that space. She begged us to move in. We made it a home my son grew up there." The judge raised a brow. "Miss Brooks, please stay seated unless addressed." "She's turning my husband against me. She's shutting off the utility as she locked him out." Tasha's voice cracked into the stale courtroom air. Brian's leg bounced rapidly, like a man realizing he was strapped to a sinking lifeboat. Mari didn't move. She folded her hands in her lap, nails trimmed neat, ringless fingers resting steady. Tamika cleared her throat gently. "Your Honor, may I respond?" The judge nodded, grateful for the return to order. Tamika stood with all the calm of a woman filing a document she'd already won in her head. "Your Honor, the respondents have provided no lease, no history of rent payments, no stake in ownership. The plaintiff has maintained financial control of the property since its purchase in 1996. In Tennessee Statute 66-28-201, The right to evict resides solely with the owner in cases where no tenancy agreement exists. We're not discussing wrongful eviction, we're executing a lawful one. The judge barely blinked. He turned a page in Mari's folder, read a line, then looked back toward Tasha. You filed a last-minute motion for stay on grounds of emotional hardship. However, hardship alone does not override ownership rights in this jurisdiction. And this, he tapped the folder, makes the situation quite clear. Brian stared at the floor. Tasha whispered something in his ear. He didn't nod. He didn't move. The gavel came down with a dull thud. Eviction is approved. Respondents have 72 hours to vacate. No further motion to delay will be considered without material evidence. Tasha opened her mouth again, but the judge was already standing. The bailiff announced, "Next case." Outside the courtroom, the air felt thinner. Mari inhaled slowly as they stepped out onto the sidewalk, sunlight warming her arms. Tamika smiled, unlocking her car. "You didn't even flinch." "I flinched plenty, just not where they could see it." As Tamika pulled away, Mari checked her phone. A new message blinked on the screen. It was from Brian. "I hope you're happy. We have nowhere to go." Mari read it once, then twice. She didn't respond. Not yet. The front blinds twitched open in slow, deliberate intervals. Mari didn't need to squinch. She already knew the rhythm of a rushed eviction. She'd seen it before in tenants years ago when she was still working property records downtown. But this was different. This time, it was her name on the deed. Her family tossing memories into boxes without lids, without labels, without grace. Brian hauled a plastic bin across the porch. It wobbled, unbalanced. He cursed when it tipped sideways, spilling clothes onto the concrete. Tasha didn't stop taping her own box shut to help him. She was pacing barefoot, phone glued to her ear, barking at someone, maybe her sister, maybe a Craigslist stranger offering $50 for their hand-me-down dresser. Mari sipped her lukewarm coffee from behind the curtain, eyes steady. The same mug she used every morning. The one Logan washed and dried 2 nights ago. Unasked. A knock broke the stillness. She turned. At her back door, Logan stood with 2 duffel bags slung over his shoulders. His hoodie was zipped to his chin despite the heat, and his eyes didn't match his mouth. "I packed," he said quietly. "Can I come now?" Mari opened the door. Inside, the air was warm, carrying the smell of lemon oil and the faint trace of her peach cobbler from yesterday's dinner. She led him down the short hallway to the guest room fresh sheets, spare dresser, a folded blanket with red trim. It wasn't fancy, but it looked like it belonged to someone who cared where you laid your head. "This okay?" she asked. Logan nodded once, dropped the bags by the bed, and sat on the edge like he didn't know if he was allowed to exhale. "I can do chores," he said after a beat. "We'll figure it out," Mari replied. "For now, you rest." Back outside, the chaos continued. A busted lamp teetered on top of a box labeled Brian's stuff in Sharpie, except nothing else was marked. Not the cords poking out of old electronics, not the pile of winter coats shoved into a laundry basket, not the open box full of spice jars and tangled jewelry. It looked less like moving and more like fleeing. By late afternoon, a cracked mirror leaned against the mailbox. Trash bags spilled onto the curb, loosely tied and attracting flies. Tasha dragged out a stained futon and dumped it onto the front lawn. Then she stomped inside, muttering something about no damn gratitude. Across the street, Shirley stood on her porch, arms folded, eyes narrow. She pulled out her phone and dialed. 15 minutes later, a white city truck rolled up with a code enforcement sticker in hand. Mari didn't smile. She didn't need to. Later that evening, Tamika called with calm precision. "We've filed the deed lock. No amendments, no claims, no legal interference for the next 10 years. Mari nodded into the phone. "Good." Then, without a word to anyone, she went to the breaker box and flipped the switch for Unit A to off. Her side of the house blinked back to life. Wi-Fi restored. Fridge humming. AC whispering through the vents. She leaned on the hallway wall for a moment, pressing her hand against the cool paint. The silence on her side was complete. clean. As she set the kettle to boil for tea, Logan appeared in the doorway. He looked freshly showered, curls damp, wearing a shirt a size too small. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Mari nodded, waiting. He hesitated. "When they're gone, can I still stay?" The words hovered, quiet but solid. A request, not a plea. Mari studied him for a long moment. This wasn't a child asking for shelter. It was someone choosing her, something she hadn't felt in that house for a long, long time. She didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, she handed him a clean mug and said, "You take cream or sugar?" The sledgehammer hit the drywall with a thud that echoed through the bones of the house. Mari paused only once, letting the dust settle as she leaned into the silence. The dividing wall that once split her life in two her side and theirs buckled like it knew its time was up. It hadn't been a wall of privacy. It had been a wall of permission, of tolerance. And that tolerance had expired. Logan stood a few feet back, safety goggles slightly crooked, holding a crowbar like it was sacred. "You sure you want to do it all in one day?" he asked. Mari adjusted her grip. "I've waited long enough." The plaster crumbled, revealing the studs and old wiring. With each swing, the space opened wider sunlight from her living room, now stretching into what used to be Unit A's kitchen. It was strange at first, standing in what used to feel like enemy territory. But the moment her feet stepped past the old threshold, it felt less like trespassing and more like reclaiming. They painted that same day, covered over every old scuff and patchy wall with a soft ivory tone. Mari picked herself. No input from Tasha. No arguments about modern palettes. Just clean, fresh walls. Above the old entryway, Logan dipped his brush into a can of forest green and stroked bold letters across the molding. Unit A, kitchen. Simple, final. Mari stood back, hands on her hips. "Fits, doesn't it?" Logan nodded. "It's your house. It should feel like your house." She reached into the plastic bag beside her and pulled out the new Deadbolt, a top-tier model with a keypad and fingerprint scanner. Logan helped her install it, fingers steady, his movements careful and respectful. When the final click sounded and the lock snapped into place, Mari slid both keys into her pocket. "Only you and me now," she said, handing him one. His fingers closed around it with quiet understanding. That afternoon, Shirley showed up with her signature knock-two taps and a pause. She walked in and looked around with wide eyes. "Well, damn," she muttered, spinning slowly. "This whole place breathes different." Mari grinned. I exhaled. Shirley laughed, loud and real, then added, "You didn't just kick 'em out. You downsized your stress." They toasted with glasses of cold, sweet tea in the new, unified kitchen. Logan handed out coasters like a little maitre d'. A few hours later, Tamika called to confirm what Mari already felt in her bones. "Eviction finalized. Case closed. Your property is protected, and your file's been flagged as resolved." Mari thanked her, calmly, then sat down at her kitchen counter. Her kitchen no-and pulled out her phone. Under Wi-Fi settings, she renamed the network. "Not your laundry room." No spaces, no apologies. She closed her phone with a satisfied tap and let her eyes drift around the open floor plan. Where there used to be a wall dividing resentment from resolve, there was now space room for something new to grow. As the sun dipped low, Logan unpacked his few things into drawers that didn't judge how little he brought. Mari folded towels the way she always had, tightly, square, deliberate. But this time, when she placed them in the linen closet, it wasn't an act of service. It was preparation for living, on her terms. Just before bed, as she checked the new door lock, her email pinged. Subject: Chattanooga Housing Authority newsletter feature. Message: "Miss Brooks, we'd love to feature your story in our upcoming issue on housing integrity and senior ownership. Would you be open to a short interview?" The photo paper was still warm when Mari peeled it from the printer tray. She held it up to the window light, the glossy sheen catching morning sun just right. In the center stood Logan, gangly and straight-backed in a hoodie one size too big. Next to him, Mari head high, mouth caught mid-laugh, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. Behind them, the duplex shimmered in its new ivory coat. The wall they'd painted together had a fresh sign beneath the porch light. No unit, just home. She took her time choosing the frame solid oak, like her. No frills, no shine, just strong lines and clean corners. When she stepped into the hall, she cleared the space herself. A crooked photo of Brian's third birthday came down. A dusty canvas from Tasha's DIY phase followed. She tucked both into the hall closet without ceremony. Logan appeared beside her with a short, floating shelf and a power drill in hand. "Mind if we make it official?" he asked. Mari raised an eyebrow. He carefully mounted the shelf beneath the photo. Then he stepped back and laid a small plaque on top. Her house. Her rules. Mari stared at it, something tightening in her throat. "That what you want people to read when they walk in?" she asked. Logan shrugged. "That's what I read the moment I stepped through your door." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned, retrieved the deed from the fireproof box, and slipped it into another frame, this one with glass thick enough to stop a bullet. She mounted it right beside the photo. A statement, not a decoration. That afternoon, the inbox pinged. One unread message. From Tasha Brooks. Subject, no subject. Body, you'll die alone. Hope the house keeps you warm. Mari stared at the words. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she clicked the 3 dots in the top right corner, hit block, and closed the lid of her laptop. The silence afterward wasn't empty. It was clean. She stood, tied on her apron, and began zesting lemons. By the time the bread was cooling, Logan had packed 3 woven baskets with still warm loaves, hand-folded thank you cards, and a few peppermint tea bags for good measure. They made the rounds to Mrs. Halpern first, who teared up and offered them a broken but sweet thank you. Then down to the couple in Unit 2B who always waved but never lingered. Mari didn't speak much, just smiled, nodded, and let her presence say what it needed to. When they returned, Shirley was waiting on the porch with a folded flyer in hand. "You better sit down for this," she said, eyes sparkling. Mari arched a brow. "Is it another HOA citation?" "Nope. Better." Shirley handed her the flyer, then sat beside her on the swing. City of Chattanooga. New senior rental mentorship program launched. Seeking experienced landlords 60+ for community-led workshops. Stipend plus publication credit offered. Logan leaned over her shoulder to read, then whistled. "That's you." Mari stared at the words. She wasn't sure what startled her more, that someone thought her story had value, or that she was finally ready to share it in rooms that mattered. The folding chair beneath Mari groaned, but she didn't shift. She leaned forward into the mic, palms flat on the community center table. The light above cast long shadows over her pressed navy blouse and silver curls. "They'll call you names," she said, voice even. "Bitter, cold, ungrateful. That's what people say when you stop letting them steal from you." Around the room, a dozen senior landlords, some with notepads, others just listening, nodded slowly. A woman in the front row dabbed her eyes with a wrinkled tissue. Mari took a sip of water. Don't confuse silence with weakness. Sometimes silence is just the inhale before you knock down a wall. A pause. Then light applause, hesitant at first, then solid. By the time the session ended, 3 attendees waited at her table with questions. Another asked if she had a blog. Someone else held out a clipboard. "Would you be open to doing this again?" Mari blinked at the attention, then gave a small nod. "We'll see," she murmured. That night, she opened her laptop and started a new document. Own It Without Apology, a practical guide for senior landlords. The title sat bold and centered on the screen. She stared at the blinking cursor a moment, then began typing. Chapter 1. You are not the problem. The person stealing from you is. In the dining room, Logan hunched over his own laptop, earbuds in. She called out, "You still know how to edit, don't you?" He pulled one bud out and grinned. "Depends. How spicy we getting?" Mari turned the screen toward him. "I'm not softening anything." He read the title and whistled low. "That sounds like you." He took a seat beside her. "You want a section called Laundry Rooms and Locked Doors?" She raised an eyebrow. That's going to be the opening quote. Outside, wind rustled through the newly cleared yard. Where clutter once piled, now only trimmed hedges stood, sharp and proud. Inside, the air smelled of lemon balm and pencil shavings. Later, Mari checked her emails. Nothing from Tasha. Not since that last venomous note weeks ago. She searched her name out of habit. Tasha's old blog was gone. Socials. Deleted. Posts about the family duplex had vanished like they'd never existed. Mari didn't feel triumphant. She just felt too released. She locked the front door knot out of fear, but routine and glanced once at the framed deed by the entryway. Still straight. Still hers. She turned off the lights. Her phone buzzed just before she reached the stairs. Unknown number. Chattanooga, Tennessee. She hesitated, thumb hovering, then answered with a curt, "Hello?" A woman's voice came through, clear and professional. "Hi, is this Miss Mari Brooks?" "Yes." "My name's Darlene. I'm with the East Tennessee Real Estate Collective. We've read your letter and heard about your talk today from several members. We'd like to formally invite you to speak at our annual summit next month." Mari leaned against the wall. "I'm sorry. Did you sesame it?" "Yes, ma'am. We're calling it Steady Ground. Property Rights and Power in the Golden Years. We'd be honored if you'd lead a keynote session. Real pay, too, and you'd keep full control over your content." Mari closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. Her voice soft but steady. "I think that can be arranged." The stage lights weren't bright, but they were hot. Mari adjusted the microphone with hands steadier than she expected. She wasn't a speaker by trade, but she wasn't nervous either, not after what she'd already survived. "Good morning," she said, her voice low but deliberate. "They asked me to talk about property, ownership, boundaries, but really what I want to talk about is being invisible." The room went still. Folding chairs creaked as attendees leaned forward. Rows of faces young professionals, middle-aged landlords, silver-haired retirees looked up at her with quiet expectation. "I owned my duplex outright," Mari continued. "Paid the mortgage, covered every light bulb, every cracked pipe, every tax bill, but still they acted like I owed them space, and when I stopped giving, they called it betrayal." She let the silence stretch just enough. "I didn't yell. I documented. I didn't threaten. I filed. And I didn't lose any except the illusion that love excuses abuse." A sharp inhale came from somewhere in the second row. Mari heard it, registered it, but didn't pause. "I was locked in a laundry room, so I redrew the floor plan. Now no one gets to trap me in corners I paid for." Applause didn't come all at once. It surged building like rain on a metal roof. Real, loud, sustained. Mari didn't smile. Not quite, but her chin lifted a little higher. Afterward, she stepped down from the stage to a line of handshakes and whispered gratitude. An older woman clutched her palm with both hands. "Thank you," she said, tears brimming, "for not letting them take you down." Another slipped her a handwritten note. "I haven't spoken to my daughter in months. You reminded me that I don't have to keep letting her talk to me like I'm the furniture." Near the back, Shirley waited, cheeks wet. "You did it, honey," she whispered. "You stood taller than they ever expected." Mari nodded, pressing her lips together. It felt final, but freeing. Later, in a side room, Tamika handed her a thick folder. "You're officially a published author. Workbooks greenlit." Mari skimmed the first page. "Own It Without Apology. A Guide to Holding Your Ground." By Marion Brooks. Her name looked strange in print. Heavy. Real. Logan approached next, laptop bag slung across his shoulder, cheeks flushed with quiet pride. "Hey," he said. "I made something." He pulled out his phone and turned it toward her. A homepage loaded with a clean white banner. MsMariOwnsIt.com. Your property. Your power. He tapped to show her page's bio, book resources, speaking request form, even a quote from her summit speech. "I thought people might want to find you," he said, "and learn, like I did." Mari didn't speak for a moment. She just reached up and rested a hand on his shoulder. "You think of everything," she murmured. He shrugged, a little embarrassed. You taught me how. The city newsletter came out a week later. Mari didn't expect to see herself on the cover, but there she was, arms folded, standing in front of her house. The front porch now freshly painted in a soft eggshell blue. Matriarch of the month, when ownership means more than a deed. Neighbors stopped her in the grocery aisle. Someone at the gas station offered to buy her coffee. She nodded politely through it all, but she kept her feet on the ground. Praise was nice. Justice was better. That afternoon, the sun was just starting to bend west when Mari checked her mailbox. She sorted through the usual utility ads, a flyer about leaf removal, a medical pamphlet she didn't request. And then, a small manila envelope. No return address. Inside, folded neatly, was an old photo. Faded at the edges from years ago, her, Brian, and a much younger Logan, all standing in front of the duplex during one summer cookout. The image had been torn Tasha, missing entirely. No message, no signature. Just silence and a rip through history. The old laundry room still smelled faintly of powdered detergent and faint betrayal. Mari stood in the doorway, arms folded across her chest, staring at the tile floor where she once sat all night cold, ignored, locked in like an afterthought. But now, there was no door separating her from the rest of the house. Only space, and the space was hers. She peeled away the wire shelving first, one brittle metal piece at a time. Then the cracked plastic bins went into the trash. The utility sink stayed, but she refinished it, shining it until it gleamed like a basin worthy of fresh herbs and lemonade, not mop buckets and mildew. Mari repainted the walls a soft gray. Logan helped lay down a warm rug beneath the new reading chair. They picked it out together, navy corduroy, high back, deep seat. The kind of chair you could get lost in with a book or just your own thoughts. She added a counter along one side with a mini fridge and 2 wooden shelves. It was small, practical, quiet everything the front unit used to be before it got loud with someone else's rules. Then came the final touch, a hand-carved wooden sign mounted above the chair. Shirley made it for her, with a careful brush and steady hand. The letters curved slightly, imperfect but sincere. No one gets stuck here again. Mari touched the edge of the sign. The wood felt warm, almost forgiving. The room smelled of fresh paint and lemon oil now. Light filtered through the curtained window in soft lines. A basil plant sat on the sill, thriving. That Friday evening, laughter drifted in from the back patio. Logan had invited 2 friends over boys with polite hellos and unsure eyes who didn't quite know how to act inside someone else's family. Mari made chili, extra spicy, the way she liked it. She ladled it into bowls and passed them out with warm cornbread muffins. No one asked where his parents were. No one had to. They sat around the old oak table, bowls steaming, spoons clinking softly, and for the first time in what felt like years, the house didn't feel split. It felt full. Later, after the boys left and the porch lights buzzed on, Shirley stopped by with a small gift box. For your keys, she said, placing it gently in Mari's palm. Inside were 3 handmade ceramic keychains each, glazed in deep red with little words etched in black. No more deadbolts. Mari chuckled low in her throat. You know me too well. Better now than ever, Shirley said. The house had grown quiet by then. The kind of quiet Mari used to be afraid of. Now it felt like peace on purpose. She walked through the duplex slowly. Every hallway was open. Every door could be locked or left wide by her choice, no one else's. The neighbors had noticed the changes, but they didn't ask. They waved more, paused longer at the sidewalk. There was a kind of reverence in the way they nodded, now not pity. Respect, quiet, and earned. That night, Mari opened her safe, removed the folder, marked legacy, and replaced the old will with a new one. The lawyer's stamp was still wet on the final page. The last line read, To Logan Brooks, I leave the house in its entirety, along with everything I taught him about doors. She slipped the folder back into the safe and clicked it shut. Just as she was settling into the reading chair, her phone buzzed. Tamika's name flashed on screen. Mari answered with a simple, Yes? Tamika didn't bother with hello. We passed 1,000 copies, Mari. The books flying. The floor creaked beneath Mari's bare feet, not from wear, but from memory. Morning light spilled across the floorboards like a slow blessing, warm and steady. The air inside the duplex was still, save for the faint hum of the fridge and the soft shuffle of someone moving in the kitchen. She didn't rush. There was no need to anymore. Mari moved through the hallway she once tiptoed through, to avoid being seen as a burden. She touched the cool, repainted trim with her fingertips, brushing past old echoes that had lost their power. The once dividing door between the front and back units had been removed months ago, where it used to mark a line of tension, of hierarchy, of silent humiliation there, was now an open archway, trimmed in soft pine and painted a gentle sage. Logan had chosen the color. The scent of fresh coffee drifted in from the kitchen deep, nutty, comforting. "Mari?" Logan's voice carried lightly. "Mugs on the counter. Just how you like it." She stepped in, and there it was. Her favorite ceramic cup, filled nearly to the brim. Black coffee, no sugar. The way she'd always taken it, sharp, honest, undiluted. Logan was rinsing out the French press, sleeves pushed up, hair still damp from a shower. He glanced back at her and smiled. "You slept in," he teased. "I earned that," Mari replied, picking up her mug. They shared a quiet moment, eyes meeting with that unspoken rhythm they'd built. It wasn't mother and son. It wasn't obligation. It was something cleaner than that. It was chosen. After a few sips, Mari walked to the front door. Her hand hovered over the knob not out of fear, but in ritual. For years, opening this door had meant confrontation or judgment. Now, it meant morning air and fresh starts. She turned the knob. No resistance, no hesitation. Outside, dew still clung to the grass. Birds chirped from the power line like they were giving permission to breathe easy. And nestled beside the mailbox, fastened to a slim iron stake, was the newest addition. A brushed bronze plaque, small but dignified. "This home stands on reclaimed ground." The letters were engraved deep, firm, permanent. Logan had ordered it quietly, installing it one morning while Mari was still asleep. She stepped down onto the porch and approached the plaque. The sun had warmed the metal, and as she touched it, her thumb rested just below the word reclaimed. She remembered standing here once, arms shaking, locked out, her own towels in her hand. She remembered how Tasha had said, "If you want to feel useful," and how the door had closed behind her like the lid of a coffin. Mari looked up at her house. The siding had been cleaned, the curtains replaced, the paint refreshed. But more than that, the energy had shifted. It no longer whispered of shame or imbalance. It stood tall like its owner finally did. She turned back toward the wall next to the porch. The same wall she'd once leaned against, crying into her palms as the night swallowed her silence. Mari placed her hand flat on the wood, pressing gently. It was warm from the sun, solid, familiar, but it no longer held the weight of that memory, not like it used to. Inside, Logan called from the kitchen. "Want breakfast?" Mari didn't answer right away. She stayed there, eyes closed, letting the moment hold her. When she finally stepped back into the house, it was not as someone reclaimed. It was as the rightful keeper. She passed the laundry nook-turned reading corner, now filled with worn paperbacks and a hand-thrown bowl of peppermints. She passed the framed deed in the hallway, the one with her full name in bold type, and paused at the quote hanging above it. Her house. Her rules. Mari smiled. She didn't need to post about it. She didn't need to explain it again. The house explained it for her now. Every wall, every window, every damn brick. She locked the door behind her not out of fear, but out of choice.